p.m. and I call to order the November 15th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. Do I hear a motion to enter executive session?
Madam Chair, I move that we enter into executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Is there any discussion? Sure. Can you read the executive session motion? Yeah, here you go.
Madam Chair, I move that the board enter executive session to receive legal advice in the matter of Garris versus Lexington County School District One and to discuss 2022-2023 employment recommendations, personnel matters related to the district's organizational structure, and a contractual matter involving potential RFQ or RFP.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. For the record, Ms. Garris has submitted the following recusal statement as of December 4th, 2018. In accordance with Section 9-13-700B, I hereby abstain from all votes, deliberations, and other action on the following matter. Jada Garris individually and on behalf of all others similarly situated versus Lexington County School District 1, case number 2017-CP-32-0435. Reasons for disqualification is that I am a litigant in the above described matter who possesses a financial interest in its outcome. All right, we will now enter into executive session. All right. Do I hear a motion to conclude executive session and return to general session?
Madam Chair, I move that the board conclude executive session and return to general session.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. I call to order the general session of the November 15th board meeting. The district is in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act by notifying the media of the date, time, and place of the meeting. The district tapes the meeting for accuracy in preparing the minutes. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Board members, you have received the minutes of the October 4th and October 18th, 2022 board meetings. Other than corrections that have been received and made, are there any other corrections? All right, hearing none, the minutes will be accepted as presented. You have received a correction to the June 14th, 2022 board meeting minutes. The correction has been reflected in the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the corrected minutes?
Madam Chair, I move the board approve the correction to the June 14th, 2022 board meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Is there any discussion? I'd just like to mention that this correction is just to correct a administrative error, a clerical error. The date for the first day of school in 2023 was incorrect in the version that was approved. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Do I hear a motion in the matter of Garris versus Lexington County School District 1?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve a payment of $16,000 of fees and costs to Mrs. Garris' attorney in full and final settlement of this matter.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion that the board approve one certified recommendation for the 2022-2023 academic year?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve one certified recommendation for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion that the board approve one administrative recommendation for the 2022-2023 academic year?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve one administrative recommendation for the 2022-2023 academic year.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Do I hear a motion for the board to accept the newly hired support staff report for the 2022-2023 academic year as presented by administration?
Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the newly hired support staff report for 2022-2023 as presented by administration.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there any discussion? I'm very sad that this is the last administrative recommendation from Mr. Oswald. He's done those for 2 years
Trying
now.
not to mess it up.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. The board discussed personnel matters related to the district's organizational structure with the superintendent and discussed a contractual matter involving a potential RFQ or RFP. No action is necessary at this time. All right, we are moving right along, and we are here to the section of the agenda for honors and achievements, which is always our very favorite part of all of our evenings together. Remember to grab a copy of Proof Positive newsletter. They were on the table when you came in. They make great souvenirs. You can get Mr. Oswald and Dr. Guyton and Ms. Garris' signatures on them as their last meeting, as a little memento for your scrapbooks.
Those signatures double the value of those documents.
Once we finish, we will allow our honorees and their guests a chance to leave before we resume the rest of the meeting. Dr. Postlethwaite, would you please step down to the front? We have several honorees tonight, so when you hear your name, if you'll come and stand with Dr. Postlethwaite, and we will tell the audience about you and your achievement, and we will also get a picture. So. All right. Tonight's first honoree, we are excited to welcome Dana Crumpton, the Gilbert High School Career Specialist. Ms. Crumpton, please come up front. Dana was recently recognized as South Carolina's Career and Technical Education 2022 Career Specialist of the Year by the South Carolina Department of Education. The honor comes from SCDE's Offices of Career and Technical Education and Student Intervention Services. Dana, as well as the district's other career specialists, provides students with important college and career readiness information and opportunities. Let's watch a short video highlighting the vital work she does to help students prepare for success after graduation.
I can definitely see if he'll allow you to come job shadow, and that'll kind of give you, the two different pathways that you're thinking about. Every single day is really a little bit different. It just kind of depends on if I have, classroom visits set up, or if I am working with students as far as job shadowing or resumes or any kind of need that they have. And every single school is a little bit different in the day of life of a career specialist. You have 3 great options on the table. Would you go above and beyond normal expectations? One of the reasons I like going into the classrooms and doing a lot of lessons is because I get to work with students. Building those relationships, they know who I am, I know who they are. They can come in and talk to me about, maybe things that they're worried about or things that they want to explore.
I know I have someone that I can always lean onto, or someone I can reach out if I have any questions or if I need any help. And so that's something that's really special and really important, I think, especially as a senior about to take on something completely different.
We are able to guide them either whether it's 4-year, 2-year, or career path, or military, really. We have our hands in all of it. Finding a thing that they're really good at and discovering, like, do you like to be outside? Do you want to work inside? Do you like working with your hands? Do you like working on the computer? Finding what they really like and kind of just honing in on that and trying to find careers for them to go out into.
Dana, it's clear how much you care about your students. Congratulations on this honor. Now we would like to invite another career specialist, Ms. Julie Rochek, to the front. Julie, the district's Career Services Coordinator, was recently named the South Carolina Association for Career and Technical Education's Counseling and Career Development Professional of the Year. Julie previously supported students at River Bluff High School. She was honored for her outstanding work and dedication. November is also National Career Development Month, so it's appropriate that we thank you, Julie and Dana, and all of our district's career specialists this month. Congratulations on your honor, and thank you. Next, we invite Dr. Natalie Osborne-Smith to join us as we share some great news about the entire district. Lexington District One was selected as a Cognia System of Distinction based on the results of our recent rigorous accreditation engagement review process. Cognia recognized only 96 schools and 38 systems in 34 states and 9 countries with this distinct honor. That's out of more than 1,500 engagement reviews for accreditation completed in the 2021-2022 school year. That rating places Lexington District 1 among the top 98% internationally. It takes the talents of the entire district family, students, teachers, support staff, administrators, and board members to achieve such a distinctive and coveted award. Dr. Osborne-Smith, thank you for leading this effort on behalf of the entire district. Did you know that this week is National Education Week? Because of this, we are truly honored to recognize some of our district's most outstanding educators, our 31 school-level Teachers of the Year. These educators were chosen by their colleagues to represent their schools in the district's Teacher of the Year process. Each of them embody what it means to be a compassionate, creative, skillful teacher and educator. When I read your name, please come forward to be recognized and receive your plaque. That will go on your door of your classroom. You'll also see photos of those who could not join us tonight on the screen. This year's honorees are Beechwood Middle's Jason McCullough, Carolina Springs Elementary's Dr. Tamala Jett, Carolina Springs Middle's Sarah Jorgensen, Centerville Elementary's Crystal Mills, Deerfield Elementary's Brian French, Forts Pond Elementary's Jennifer White, Gilbert Elementary's Mackenzie Hall, Gilbert High's Lisa Wells, Gilbert Middle's Alex Beatonbaugh, Lake Murray Elementary's Katie Handel, Lakeside Middle's Tiffany Fields, Lexington Elementary's Aaron McMillan, Lexington High's Megan Small, Lexington Technology Center's Tony Ferrara, Meadowglen Elementary's Neil Nakarni, Meadowglen Middle's Trudy Montgomery, Midway Elementary's Hope Lloyd, New Providence Elementary's Andrew Brooks, Oak Grove Elementary's Harley Shelton, Peelian Elementary's Casey Hill, Peelian High's Beth Fulmer, Peelian Middle's Christopher Johnson, Pleasant Hill Elementary's Jennifer Taylor, Pleasant Hill Middle's Lori McKelvey, Red Bank Elementary's Maria Sabian Andoni, River Bluff High's Joe Ben Watson, Rocky Creek Elementary's Paula Langdale, Satsgatha Elementary's Kimberly Lewis, White Knoll Elementary's Rhonda Sheldon, White Knoll High's Cheryl Felder, White Knoll Middle's Suzette Hawkins. One of these finalists will become the district's 2023-24 Teacher of the Year on March 30th, 2023 at the annual celebration. Mark your calendars. That's a great event. You should all attend. It's really exciting. Our students are better because of your willingness to share your time, talents, and knowledge. Let's give all of our finalists one more round of applause. Thank you. All right. We have 3 more special people to honor tonight. These individuals are truly servant leaders as well as compassionate advocates for our staff and our students. Would Ms. Jada Garris, Dr. Kyle Guyton, and Mr. Tim Oswald please step down and join Dr. Postlewaite? But you have to come back up here after the recognition. Yeah, I think so. Ms. Garris, Dr. Guyton, and Mr. Oswald joined our board in 2018 and have spent the last 4 years advocating at the local and state level for students, teachers, staff, parents, and the entire Lexington District 1 community. As a former district bus driver, a pediatrician in our community, and a former district principal, respectively, they understand the importance of public education in preparing students for future life experiences. They work hard every day to serve our district and do not shy away from making tough decisions on complex educational and social issues. They have helped us meet our mission by making sure that our schools have a solid foundation of resources, leadership, and support to empower every child to succeed. And they volunteer many hours of their time without pay or reimbursement because they truly are servant leaders. Please join me in thanking them as their term ends for their dedication and hard work. And I just want to extend my personal thanks to them. It's been a crazy, unusual 4 years, and I and I just appreciate each one of you and your leadership and your devotion to this district. You know, whether it was attending with plexiglass and masks to empty rooms, or you know, just all that you've done over the last 4 years to serve the students in our community. And you know, a superintendent search, that's a rigorous process, and I think y'all have done a tremendous job serving our students and our staff. So thank you very much. I think we're going to go take a picture. Family pictures.
I don't know if I can still shimmy or not.
So a little fun fact while they're doing their pictures, the group picture that's out in the hall of the full board and it's on the website, that was actually taken during like the peak of COVID. And those are actual individual pictures that the photographer digitally put us together. And it's kind of crazy. It looks like we were there together, but we were not. Mr. Oswald is always the smart elementary school principal. He has cute kids in the picture with him, so. Well, thank you again for your dedication and service to this community. All three of them are graduates of our high schools, which I think is a real testimony to their commitment to this community, that they went to school here and they came back and they raised their families here, and they've also served the schools that trained them and brought them up. So thank you again. All right. Thank you very much for taking the time tonight to help us recognize our amazing staff and schools. We have some very talented individuals in our district, and we love sharing their achievements with you. If you need to leave, we will give you a quick and quiet moment to do that right now. But feel free to stay if you want.
The cognitive recognition's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And that happens, not because of any achievement results. They go in, that's teachers in the classroom engaging students.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Woo. We've got a full agenda, so we're going to motor on. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Postlethwaite for the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. And as we're waiting for the room to clear, the first slide in my report is what we need to introduce our very special guest tonight. We have with us Chief Mark Keel. As soon as the next slide gets up, you can see many of his amazing accomplishments. I will not take time to run through them because I have the clicker. Oh, point. Good evening, everyone. We're having a rewind moment. I'm so used to Josh doing everything for me. I forgot he put the clicker up here and reviewed with me how to use it before the meeting started. So as you peruse some of Chief Keel's accomplishments, you'll see he's an incredibly capable public servant who has served the citizens of South Carolina for many years. It's an honor to have him here tonight to talk about a longtime dream of his that involves Lexington One, possibly. So Chief Keel, we're really glad to have you tonight. We'll leave it to you to introduce your guests if you're comfortable with that. Representative Wooten, thank you for being here tonight as well.
Well, first, I just want to tell the board thank you very much for allowing me to be here tonight. And as Dr. Postlethwaite has said, this is something that we've been dreaming about and hope we have an opportunity to make it come to fruition. I first want to recognize the folks that I brought tonight. My Assistant Chief, Richard Gregory, is with me. My Major over Homeland Security, Richard Hunton. And just to let you know, he's the father of a first grade teacher from Greenwood as well. Ryan Alphen, he is my executive director over executive affairs director. And so they're with me here tonight. And so to kind of tell you how we got here. Early on, back, I guess, we go all the way back to Columbine, 1999, when we had the first really recognized school active shooter type situation. SLED got involved in starting to do training, and we really got involved in it in the early 2000 time frame. But it was really 2012 is when we finally got some Homeland Security funding for that effort, and we assigned people permanently. Initially, it was just one, Captain Wayne Freeman. I'm sorry, I missed him. He got up and came with me, and so I missed him. But Captain Wayne Freeman's over that unit. And Wayne was the lone soldier, and I'll tell you, there's nobody that any more passionate about protecting our children than Captain Freeman. And I think that we all agree that there's nothing more important than protecting our children. The greatest resource that we have are our children, and they and their teachers, administrators should certainly feel safe by going to school, and that's what our effort has been since we began this training, but especially since we had some funding for it that started in 2012. We continued to expand that training. We continued to add funding to that, and we made an effort to try and do that training in the environment that our children go to school in. And that has been very difficult to do, and especially over the years, we found it harder and harder to get into schools during the summertime because a lot of schools have summer school now. A lot of schools are doing renovations during the summer, and so we find it more and more difficult. And whether members of the board know it or not, Lexington School District One has been providing that place for us for a number of years now. Really started back, I guess, about 5 years ago, but the last 3 years, the old Gilbert Elementary School has been a location that we have, y'all have graciously, again, whether you knew it or not, you have graciously allowed us to train in that facility. And I can tell you that it has added greatly to what it is we're trying to do. The way this started and the reason I'm here tonight is Superintendent Spearman and I started talking at the first of this year. We had some email exchanges back in November about this same time last year, and then we met in January, and we started talking about the idea of creating a Center for School Safety and Targeted Violence, and creating something more with a foundation that would be available certainly for the folks here in Lexington County, but also statewide. And we were looking for something in the Midlands area so that it would make it easy for folks to travel to Columbia for training. All of the training that we've ever done has all been at no cost, and we literally have trained hundreds of thousands of people, students, teachers, administrators, business leaders, government officials, you name it. We've been involved in training anything, and it's not just active shooter training. We're training on reunification. We're training on, we train our bus drivers on how to respond to an incident. You'll see more of that in Captain Freeman's presentation. But as Superintendent Spearman and I started talking about it, I started talking about the fact that we had been using Gilbert Elementary School. And our dream was to have a facility like that would be there for us to provide training, have a calendar set that we would be providing ongoing training for our schools statewide on a regular basis. And as we talked about it, I will tell you that we talked with the governor's office about it as well, and the governor's office was excited about the possibility of having an opportunity to establish a facility like this, something that would be very unique. Other states have this, and I think we all agree that it's something that's needed. You know, after Uvalde in Texas in May of this year, we really went headlong into this trying to plan. We started meeting with some of your employees, Chris Ellisor and Sean Spivey and others. And I met with Superintendent Little before he left, and to get his ideas and thoughts about direction we were going. And then when Dr. Postlewaite became the interim, we met and had an opportunity to talk with her and show her what we had already been doing. And we continued to move this forward. I started talking to members of the legislature, of the legislative delegation, members that represent that district, but also members of the delegation here in Lexington County. I talked with Mayor Reeder. I talked with Sheriff Kuhn, who's been involved with me since we first started conversations about this project. And so I guess what I'm here asking tonight and what we're talking about doing is the ability to create a partnership between Lexington District One and SLED and other folks from the Sheriff's Department, obviously continued partnership with Lexington District One to create a permanent facility that we might be able to provide the type of training that we need to provide statewide for our children, for our teachers, our administrators, to try and protect our schools and our children. And so I'm going to close with that real quick, and we'll certainly be more than happy to take questions after this. I know Representative Wooten is here. He and I have been talking about this as well, and he may have something he wants to say later, but I'm going to ask at this time if Captain Freeman would go through this short PowerPoint presentation just to give you a feel about what it is that we're trying to accomplish.
Good evening, everyone. It's a tough act to follow, Chief Keel, so I'm going to make it a very short, sweet presentation. I'll only dwell on a couple of slides. As Chief said, I'm Wayne Freeman. I run the Active Shooter Training and Response Unit for SLED. We've been at it for a little over a decade, and we have several federal and state grants that support us in doing that. I wanted to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. This is our current mission statement. We want to be able to provide training on par with anything that's available in the United States, and we don't want to charge for it. Basically, we are well into the millions of dollars worth of training that we've provided in the last decade. But I also wanted to tell you a little bit about where we're headed. These are the forms of training that we provide, not only in this state, but across the United States. We've trained in 15 other states. We constantly and consistently get requests for training from around, well, actually the world. We've trained folks from 8 other countries. We've trained folks from South Korea, Japan, Germany, Iceland. The list continues to grow. But it's not just about active violence response training, the tactical end of things. It's also about mental health first aid, reunification, its response and recovery. We're limited in our growth by personnel and location. So I want to tell you a little bit about where we're headed. We want to expand, and we don't have a home to do that. One of the things that we want to do, we want to increase all forms of training that increase the educational environment safety. If you don't feel safe, you can't learn. I have a tendency, and everybody in this room who knows me knows this, I have a tendency to nerd out, but you meet Maslow's hierarchy of needs, well, one of those is security. You have to speak to it in order to be able to learn. We want low-cost training available to anybody who asks for it, on par with anything that's available in the nation. We want to increase our threat assessment and behavioral intervention presence in the state. We want to expand our behavioral sciences unit to be able to do that. And we really want to be able to expand the services that other safe school centers, school safety centers, offer around the nation. When you look around the country, basically more than half have school safety centers. Approximately 43 states make some effort to have a school safety center. And out of all of those, generally they're staffed by 10 or more people. Of course, we can never be Texas, who has 176 to 180 personnel in there. We don't want to be. We want to serve this state with the needs that often come up: response, recovery, mental health issues. So to do that, we've been looking at the Gilbert property. And if you direct your attention to the screen, you'll see the areas in red. We use those all the time. And this is one of the slides that I want to dwell on. Lexington School District One has been responsible as a partner for a little over $250,000 worth of supportive training. It's a great partnership. Sean and Chris Ellisor, not only did they conduct themselves as gentlemen, we've traveled all over the United States with them, and while they're away, incidentally, they also conduct themselves as good ambassadors for Lexington District 1. Just wanted to get that plug in there. I've seen their behavior in Denver and Texas and many other places. The area in red, we use it quite often. So we're constantly texting Chris or Sean, hey, can you meet us out there? Can you help us with this? We've had everything from educators learning in that space, reunification training, mental health, tactical first aid, active shooter classes, rescue task force. It's served firefighters, EMTs. It's served churches. It's served businesses. So it's a very useful space, to say the least. Like I said, I've been with the program for 10 years, and we have trained in locations, let's just call them austere. I remember one particular incident where if you didn't watch yourself in one of the training locations, you would snag your head on a nail. That's the kind of place that we're used to. This place is the best training site we have ever been in, hands down. If you look at the areas in yellow, the entire campus has proven itself very useful. We have open air training, bus familiarity training for SROs and bus drivers. We currently have a federal grant for special needs, teachers, assistants, children, and expanding special needs training, both in response and recovery. We'd like to use those buildings in the yellow to expand that program. So the entire campus is useful, but we're also very well aware of the sense of community that happens at that location. Now, this is the blueprint. As I said, the areas in yellow, they're the ones we focus most on. We provide quite a bit of tactical training at that location. We do a lot of what's called alert level 1. That's basically about getting into a school and stopping violence. But we also have rescue task force classes, which is about recovering from violence and moving the community to a sense of normalcy, mental health. Response goes along with recovery. I often argue around the entire United States, recovery is far more important than the response. So our program benefits from both types of training, and we've held both types of training at the Gilbert location. What are we looking to get out of it? What do we want to do with it? Well, we want to expand the Safe Corner training for everyone in the United States, to be honest, but specifically South Carolina to start. We want to do much more advanced training, statewide implementation of the SRO bus course. We already have a bus course that's available to the Department of Education. We'd like to expand on that program. The SRO training partnership that we share with the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy, we'd like to expand it as well and offer more advanced training to those SROs. The Department of Education, we're currently a partner with them. We'd like to basically expand that partnership, work a little bit more closely, and we could also have a SLED training site for our training unit and other agencies at that location. Some of the services we currently provide, bleeding control, active shooter training, of course, security assessment training. Incidentally, whether you knew it or not, you're hosting one this week in Gilbert at Centerville. It's going great, and that class came from Washington to us. They were excited to partner with us again because they've been in your district at River Bluff before, and you were great hosts. There's just no other way to say it. We've had tabletop exercises and training at the Gilbert location. We offer a lot that isn't just about the tactics, as I said, and not having one centralized location, that's difficult. We end up at a lot of large churches around the state. We end up borrowing your schools. We end up borrowing schools from other districts. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to approach a principal or a superintendent and say, do you mind if we go shoot up your school for a little while? It's usually an awkward conversation. There's a lot more to it than that, but having a home would make it a lot easier to deliver training year-round rather than just June, July, and up to about August 9th. Most of the time August 3rd because people are worried about their floors. Some of the other services that we have, coordination of information, data analysis, we work with DOE in basically constant harmony doing that. Reunification training all over the state and all over the country. Believe it or not, little old South Carolina is quite good at reunification, and we're recognized for doing that. We want to expand that program. And the special needs program, that one's pretty near and dear to my heart. We got that federal grant that I mentioned earlier. We want to expand the training available to special needs teachers and assistants to make it easier to barricade a room, react to violence, recover from violence, move those students to reunification, because let's be honest, there is no high mobility in the special needs population. There is no such thing as run, hide, fight, that quote system that everyone uses. It's hide, hide, fight. And it's time that the United States actually acknowledged that special needs, children, students, teachers, and assistants, they have special needs. That's exactly why we need to expand the program. It's an emotional hot button that nobody wanted to touch. We're happy to take it on, and we need a home to do that. We provide guidance for threat assessment teams. Mentioned reunification earlier. We'd like to expand our partnership with mental health and to provide behavioral and threat assessment services. We currently do that. We'd like to do more. The districts seem to like working with us on that, and we have a fairly easy program to use. We'd like to do more of it. We'd like to offer more. And we'd also like to support the state master training calendar. Now, what does it benefit Gilbert? Our primary interest in the location is to continue to be a good neighbor. It's been Chief Keel's driving force since the beginning. He's made it very, very clear to myself and the major. We will continue to be the good neighbors that we have been, and we're going to improve upon that neighborly attitude and behavior. The benefits to the Gilbert community would include constant increased law enforcement presence, not just educators and others, but a constant law enforcement presence there on a daily basis. Having been a deputy who worked in that area, that's not such a bad thing. It's one of the more remote areas in the county. It would be great to see more law enforcement out there. Conference and workshop space available to anyone who needed it. All you have to do is book it. Come there. We're happy to host you. It's centrally located, so you can travel from anywhere in the state. Reasonably easy drive, depending upon where you're coming from. Stay there for the day, go home for the night without having to worry about hotels or having to drive from one end of the state to the other. The continued community activity support, that one's very, very important to all of us. There will be no changes. In fact, we want to improve upon it. We want classes for the citizens out there. We want them to use the track. We want them to go to the ball field. We want them to be able to visit their alma mater. We have plans to increase our community activity for being out there. So that's going to continue on, hopefully even get better. We want to increase the economic presence in the area and the opportunity for commerce in that area. If you have thousands of not only first responders, but potentially educators and every other section of the community coming to the Gilbert area, it just makes sense that there's an opportunity for increased commerce out there. Everything from gas stations to catering. We'll have to be doing some catering out there. We're already looking into catering that can come from not only Columbia, but surrounding areas, Batesburg, Leesville. We hope that it's going to be a boon for the community out there. And we want to make a workspace for Lexington County deputies where they can stop, basically get onto Wi-Fi, come in, sit down, cool down, whatever they need to do. And Chief Keel has talked to the sheriff about that. Some other benefits of the partnership, well, we would have a centralized training location, as both Chief and I mentioned. It would be an easy drive to come to the Midlands, engage in the training, and then to go back wherever you're from. Convenient access to logistics and training space. And if you look at the last one, increased storage and office space, everybody could use increased storage and office space. It just so happens that we were lucky enough to get one of 29 grants in the entire world in the last 5 years. And we got quite a bit of good equipment for everyone that we train. It would be nice to have storage for that. Conference and workshop spaces we mentioned, but it also provided training space for fire, EMS, hazmat. All types of disciplines and special teams could come to that location to receive training or to use the facility. That would also lend itself to full-scale exercises. We do those quite a bit, and it's very difficult to find a school that's willing to host a full-scale because you have to shut down your entire school for the entire time. So that would be a nice benefit, put it that way. That would be putting it mildly. And we'd also have a South Carolina Safe Schools team meeting location. That would lend itself to meeting for mental health, red flag warning programs, mental health first aid training, and other types of training like that. Now, what's our partnership intent? The active shooter training unit will be housed there. That's where we'll spend the majority of our time. Of course, there will be quite a bit of travel around the state as we currently do, but that will be our home base. We also want to expand our behavioral sciences unit and put somebody out there who they focus on education specifically. South Carolina Department of Mental Health will be invited to have a space out there. South Carolina Department of Education will have a space out there for assessors or anyone else that they would like to have. Lexington County Sheriff's Office, as we mentioned earlier. And as you have been gracious hosts, anytime you're welcome to come out there as well. Sean and Chris have a nice place to work, but we'd always like to see them. Are there any questions that I can answer for any of you? Thank you for your time.
I'd like to just add just a couple things and I guess go back. One is, one of the things that's been very important to me, and I talked to Mayor Reeder actually yesterday. There is a lot of sentimental value to that school out there. And when I talked to him about the opportunity to maybe do what we're talking about doing, he was very excited about that. He said, I got a meeting. He said, I'd love to be there tomorrow night. This was yesterday. He said, but I got a meeting. And he said, you just made my day. Because one of the things that I think that we want to do, and I've told our folks, is we've been a good neighbor out there, and we're going to continue to be a good neighbor if we have that opportunity. Because there's things that we can offer to that community doesn't have now. And all the utilization that they have of the ball fields, the track, the things that they do now, we want to continue to provide that utilization for that community as well. So that's the one thing. The second thing you hear about behavioral science, we have a behavioral science unit at SLED, and we have had for a long time. I spoke at superintendent's meetings a number of times, and I tell them about that when we go. Not everybody uses that tool that we have, but more schools are starting to use that tool, and I say tool, that resource that we have when we have troubled students. And we all know sometimes who they are, and we don't know exactly how to deal with them. And that's what our behavioral science unit does. It deals with threats and risk analysis and threat assessments and trying to determine what we can do to try to build a plan to help that individual. You know, a lot of people that we deal with, they're not mentally, they don't have a mental problem, they're just mentally unhealthy. And we got to try to figure out how we can help them, and that's one of the things that we're doing. We would expand our behavioral science unit in a much broader way so that educators knew that we were there and available to them across the state. And then last, I know that y'all being a school board, you're all thinking about, okay, well, maybe all this sounds great, but you know, how are we going to do all this and where's the money coming from? Money's always the key to everything, it seems like. And I just want to say again that I have been talking with members of the General Assembly. I talked with Senator Massey, Senator Shealy, Senator Setzler here in Lexington, a number of the House members, Representative Wooten, Representative Forrest, whose district it's in, Representative Caskey. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I probably am. But and I've also have had conversations with and Representative Calhoun as well. And I've had conversations, Dr. Guyton and I had a conversation one day. I talked with former Superintendent Floyd, and he and I had a good conversation. And the conversations I've had, there's not been a single person that don't believe it's a great idea. Whether it happens here in Lexington District 1, ultimately is up to y'all. But I would tell you that we have got very positive feedback from leadership in the State House with regards to doing this. I think everybody thinks that this is something that South Carolina needs to do, and it's a matter of where we do it, and we think we've got an ideal location, and we would love to partner with you and love to work with you to try to make this come to fruition if it's possible. And I'll be happy to answer any question anyone might have.
Thank you, Chief Hill. I have one question. As part of the bond, this is Jada, as part of the bond referendum, it was told to the voters that this was going to become an early childhood center. And I know the board has received a couple presentations about that over the years. So have you had any discussions with anyone about what will happen with that?
We had, I had discussions with Dr. Little initially when I talked to him. I've talked to Dr. Postaway as well. And I would tell you that I think that I'll also have support from members of the General Assembly, the appropriators, to help this district make that happen, whether it's at that location or some other location, but that we would be able to make that happen and would help finance that making that happen. Because we do understand that is something that's important. We understand it's, again, the community expects that, and we want to do what we can to try to make that happen. And again, the members of the General Assembly that I've talked to, I've discussed that with them, and they know that that's something that we've got to try to help make happen.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Keel, as you and I discussed, school safety is not something we like to talk about, but something we have to talk about.
Yes, sir.
And you had mentioned the word neighborly, and I think that's an excellent word, such that Lexington One could be neighborly to the state. You know, just by being positioned in a centralized part of the state, allowing additional school districts to send people here to train alongside, it really does set up an excellent location, just if you look at nothing else. I had made a commitment to you to reach out to some of the local people within the Gilbert community. I spoke with pastors, I spoke with business owners, spoke with general community members. I didn't find an instance of concern, quite frankly. There was nothing, but as you spoke about, nothing but positive remarks regarding, again, the unfortunate need that we have to fulfill. And so that's my report back to you.
I appreciate it, Dr. Guyton. Thank you. You know, I think it's like Senator Sutzer said when I talked with him. You know, he said, Mark, he said, I think this is great. This would be great for Lexington County, but he said it'd be great for the whole state. And again, that's what we're trying to look at and trying to plan for. Any other question?
I think Representative Wooten is going to speak on behalf of maybe some of the delegation members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, board members, for just giving me a minute. I'm not going to be every politician says I won't be long, but I'm not going to be, I promise. I just want to step up for a second to say that as part of the General Assembly, our main mission, I think, is to fund the essential forms of government, state government. And I can't think of anything more essential than making sure our children are safe. And this is, I think this is a phenomenal way to do it. Chief Keel and I spoke just a couple months ago about this, and as soon as he did, I said, well, let me get on the phone and try to see how this can work. And Jada, to your question, I've spoken with the speaker. I've spoken with the chairman of Ways and Means coming in, also the chairman of the subcommittee of Ways and Means for Law Enforcement, and all are in agreement that this will be funded. They've all stepped up and said that they can think of nothing better or any better way to fund law enforcement and help this. And so I think that's going to not be a problem in these talks. I feel confident, and I don't usually like to feel confident, in some people downtown. So I'll leave that alone. So, but with that being said, I do feel that will be done. And anybody here, I will tell you if I know we're going to get this thing, they'll be talking about being catered, so you might want to buy stock in Sheely's if you up that way. So, but just all kidding aside, there's nothing to set the tone for the nation, not just for the state, for our state law enforcement that are already doing it the right way. I used to work with some of these guys years ago as well, and nothing can be a better staple or even a better look for South Carolina to be the place, and especially Lexington County to be the place for people all over the country to come and learn how to keep their children safe. So I'm in full support of it. I can't speak for all of our delegation members, but I'm going to because they're not here. So I will tell you that our entire delegation that I've spoken with is 100% behind this as well. So thank you very much.
Again, if there's any other questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them. And if, yes, sir.
No, I've learned to repeat things, and I'm thinking about the voters who passed the 2018 bond referendum, to Ms. Garris's point. But I think what I'm hearing is for the taxpayers and voters in Lexington One that voted for the bond referendum, if we move forward with this proposal, that the county would be held harmless, financially harmless. I mean, the state would make the county whole to meet the commitment for the Early Childhood Development Center.
That would be the effort on my part. I've already told them that I would include that in my budget submission.
Okay,
And
because I think that's important to memorialize
yes.
as we have this discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Are there any other questions since this is under superintendent's report?
I just have one more. I know originally they said part of that building was going to be demolished. Is that still the plan?
No, ma'am. In fact, the part of the building that we understood needed to be, or was talking about being demolished, was the part of the building that we utilized the most, because it has stairwells in it, and that's very important in our training. And so we have no plans whatsoever. I would tell you, obviously, in a submission that we would make on our budget submission, there's going to be upgrades. There's going to be upgrades we're going to have to do to HVAC systems, to, things such as that, some painting, facilities as far as restrooms and those type things. And those are things that we're trying to plan for and that we will include in our budget submission, both to the governor's office and into the General Assembly when we have our budget hearings later this year.
Thank you.
Well, Chief Keel, I just want to say, as thinking forward about this partnership and just some of the ways that it can benefit our students, I mean, I think that law enforcement is having some of the similar challenges that we're having with hiring and folks not wanting to go into law enforcement. And I could see a great partnership with the Technology Center, where students are able to go out there and participate in some of these early training programs to get them, to give them that law enforcement bug that you all got and have kept your whole careers. I think this would be a great way for us to integrate that into what our students are able to explore. So thank you very much for bringing this idea to us.
Well, I appreciate it. Again, thank you for allowing us the time to present this to you. I will tell you, I give my phone number out everywhere. My phone number is 803-360-9805, 803-360-9805. When I go to Rotary clubs and I give my number out, I have people look at me like you're crazy. There's no way I'd give my number out, but I'm a public servant. And again, if you have any questions later that come up, please don't hesitate to pick the phone up and call me. I may not know who you are because you won't be in my phone, but I promise you I will return your phone call if I happen to be on another line or in a meeting. But we want to answer any questions that you may have to make sure that you understand what it is we're trying to do. And again, thank you very much for your time and here tonight for us to explain to you kind of what we're planning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. We really look forward to the boards considering this idea, and I want to thank you publicly for all the support you have given to superintendents throughout the state and school districts throughout the state. We know whenever we call you, we get an immediate response. So thank you all so much for the services you provide. They're just priceless. Thank you. You're welcome to stay for the remainder of our meeting. Thank you. And thank you for putting my slides back up. I just wanted to give people a chance again to see some of Chief Keel's accomplishments. He's an amazing individual. So we look forward to continuing this conversation with the board. Our purpose for asking Chief Keel to come tonight was to make sure the public was aware that the conversations are ongoing, and we will continue those conversations. I'm going to just take a moment. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about the legislative budget proviso 1.105 and a little bit of the history on that, and then our status report regarding our 45-day deliverables and our next steps. So I'll try to be brief on this because I know the board has listened a lot already. I just wanted to back up a little bit and set the context for how social and emotional learning became part of every school district's vocabulary. It was included in the 2018 report of the Federal School Safety Commission after the Parkland shooting. And the quotes from that report are there in italics. Youth who learn these skills are able to manage their emotions and interactions in ways that benefit themselves and others. And that's one of the things that Secretary DeVos said when she was talking about the report. Most importantly, recent research suggests that the development of social and emotional skills can lead to improved outcomes for educational attainment, employment, and earnings. And so one of the problems is that social and emotional learning, or SEL, is a very nebulous, vague term. And it's come to mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, and it's been interpreted in different ways across the country. South Carolina took pains to further define its meaning. Before 2018, there was already work underway to create the profile of a South Carolina graduate. Lexington One was one of the districts that was very involved in defining the profile of a graduate to start with, and then a lot of other business representatives and educators from this state, elected public officials were involved in refining. But if you look under world-class skills, we see collaboration and teamwork. If we look under life and career characteristics, we see integrity, self-direction, global perspective, perseverance, work ethic, and interpersonal skills. Those are the skills that this district has tried to focus on. Those are the skills that are primarily included in the materials that the State Department has posted on their website to deal with the legislation regarding multi-tiered systems of support and response to intervention. This past year, in the budget proviso, the legislature once again approved this provision that spells out what school districts with any state allocated funds are to be careful not to do. And there has been some concern in the community lately that Lexington One has strayed from these two definitions, sticking to the behavioral and mental health and character development that's outlined in the profile of the graduate and adopted here in Lexington One and across the state, and some specific terms of this proviso. So I wanted to let you know what we are doing. We are conducting an internal, I don't want to call it an investigation, audit, evaluation, looking at, we first thought the complaint might be confined to about 6 schools, but now we realize it may be wider than that. So we are checking our own curriculum, checking our teachers' understanding of curriculum, giving teachers an opportunity to step forward in safe spaces and talk about any training that they might have received that is out of compliance with that last paragraph. When that investigation is completed, and that will probably take another couple of weeks, Ms. Gaskins, because we're having to pull people off of their other work to do that work, we will share our findings with the board and with the legislative delegation. And at this time, we are recommending that we also ask for an external curriculum audit or some sort of check into our district to make sure that we are not violating the provisions of the legislature and our State Department of Education. That would not be our intent. One can easily get off track and get into territory that our parents and citizens would deem inappropriate for public schools. So we are trying to stick with exactly what we are supposed to teach on those life and career characteristics across the bottom on this page, as well as responding to those students who have behavioral issues and need mental health support. So I simply wanted to be very open and frank about that. Next, I'd like to move into, are there any questions about that?
I just have one question. You said we're giving our teachers safe places to step forward.
Mm-hmm.
How are y'all doing that?
The primary concern was about an outside consultant who met with teachers in one specific school. So in that specific school, someone is going to the school, talking with teachers and making their availability known, letting teachers know how to reach out. I don't know if this has happened yet in our other schools. We won't make personal visits to those schools, but we will set up a number for teachers to call who want to report. We simply want to know. We intend to run an honorable and ethical system in all respects, And we want our teachers to feel comfortable telling us if they've been asked to teach something that's outside the confines of the state standards or that legislative proviso. Thank you. Yes. We also wanted to use tonight for the staff to give you a quick update on the 45-day deliverables. This detail is in your folders tonight. You received it ahead of time as well, but in your folders is a copy of the presentation that I'm going over right now, probably in those lavender folders at your desk. So you'll have the detail that's going to appear when I click open these slides. The first quarter deliverables for priority one has to do, our number one priority is safety and security. And Mr. Warren, these will be flyovers because you've had this detail. We're certainly not going to read to you what we sent to you. So.
Thank you, Dr. Postlewaite, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm happy to provide an update on deliverable priority one. Obviously, safety has been a theme tonight, which I'm good with as a parent in this district as well as an employee. Glad to see progress we've made on these priority one deliverable to this point. We made it a priority this year to have our drills done sooner. We've always done our lockdown drills, intruder drills throughout the school year, but this year we made it a priority through this deliverable to get them done sooner in the school year, within the first 45 days, and actually the lockdown drills were done within the first 10 days of school. We want to make sure that practice was in place before there was an opportunity for any type of event to have to utilize those practices. So that was something we accomplished very soon in the 9 weeks. The same thing with our CRACE training, citizens response to active shooter events. We made it a goal for our schools and principals to provide time for our security and safety team, Chris Ellisor and Sean Spivey, to get into schools and provide that training within the first 45 days, and we have accomplished that. Also, moving down, our clear bag procedure is now common procedure at our athletic events, middle school and high school. As you see with the presentation from SLED tonight, we work very closely with SLED, also with other law enforcement agencies, Lexington County, the town of Lexington, Pillion Police Department, on encouraging them to get into our schools, encouraging them to visit, provide input on anything they see that maybe we can improve on. We've made sure our principals understand that it's not gotcha situations, it's situations where we can improve based on their feedback. We have partnered with the security guard company to provide 100% armed security guard coverage at our schools. We're very, very close to that. We're finalizing a few things with them to complete that through the first semester. And then lastly, our behavioral threat assessment trainings for administrators, school psychologists, counselors, and school resource officers. We've done that within the first 45 days, and we'll repeat that in January with 2 more sessions to meet that goal. So like Dr. Postlewaite said earlier, safety obviously is and Chief Keel, mentioned in his speech that very much a priority for us here and priority for Dr. Postlewaite, and through her encouragement and motivation, we've been able to make some great strides with this deliverable.
To Ms. Gaskins, you've already had an entire day of workshop last Wednesday on priority number 2, which is making sure that more of our students progress on time with skills on grade level. Ms. Gaskins?
Thank you, Dr. Postlewaite. And since the deliverables are the same for ELA and math, I'm going to combine those as I give a quick update. I'd like to draw your attention to the third deliverable, which was around making sure students are placed in the appropriate tier of support. That deliverable is in progress in most schools. That's up and going. We've had a few areas where we've had a staffing shortage, which has caused us to move an intervention teacher into a regular education classroom. And while it has improved significantly this year over last year, in some cases we are still having to pull interventionists to help with subbing, but I would say the majority of our schools and the majority of our days in each school, we're able to provide those interventions as planned. In terms of the walkthrough observations, these are still in progress and will be carried over to our 90-day deliverables. Schools are really focusing on those areas that are targeted in their action plans as they're in those ELA and math classrooms. And for elementary, because teachers teach both ELA and math, they're prioritizing the area where they want to give that feedback. I'm also going to go to priority 3, if you don't mind, Dr. Postlethwaite, and begin that one. We share that one with Student Services. And I want to bring your attention to the deliverable around an elementary behavior intervention program. We appreciate the support of the board in funding 5 behavior interventionists for our elementary schools. And we've been able to fill one of those 5 positions. And she's worked very closely with Dr. Chris Gillespie, who's over our multi-tiered systems of support, to begin building that intervention program. She's also been responding to extreme behaviors and providing support in all 17 elementary schools. We have repurposed one of those positions for this year because we couldn't find people with the appropriate certifications to serve in them as 2 IAs who, once our behavior interventionists can identify those interventions, we have some wonderful instructional assistants who can go in and work side by side with both teachers and students as those interventions are being implemented. And we are continuing to try to fill the other 3 positions this year and hope to find some mid-year hires to fill those positions.
And Ms. Gaskins, I'm going to just interrupt. So we, the board got to spend about 5 hours with principals on Wednesday of last week, which was kind of a new thing, but I know that it was incredibly valuable. And I know you put that day together, you and Dr. Smith, and just to, I mean, as I said that day, I know our principals worked very hard, but I really just did not have even what I knew does not compare to what they do just driving instruction and student achievement and student success every minute of every day through whether it's, greeting them at the door. I mean, just it was an exceptional day, and I really appreciate that you let us kind of peek behind the curtain with you that day and see all that the folks are doing, because I'm excited about the progress students are going to make this year, because there's clearly a lot of folks that are working on their behalf. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for your support.
I would like to draw everyone's attention to your section on data-informed, research-based, high-dosage tutoring. We recently came across the Discus platform with the tutor.com, it's like anything. It may have a kink here or there, and you just kind of have to continue to work through that. But in working through that with my own children, it was an exceptional program where they say 12 hours. He got feedback on a paper within, I want to say, about 90 minutes. And so, this is a 24/7, 365 service that exists to any resident of South Carolina. And it's through our public library system, is my understanding. School librarians at your local level have that information as well, and you can create an account. And it's really good for parents like myself who, I don't remember pre-cal, and so I'm not going to particularly remember it at 10 o'clock at night when he's working on his homework. And so this is actually an opportunity for him to sign on, get those questions answered in a very real-time format. So just a senseless plug for that service for tutoring.
It is a great service. Thank you.
And I'll piggyback on what Ms. Gaskin said. The rest of our strategies in this area are either complete or in progress and on schedule. I will draw your attention to the school mental wellness teams. Of course, that's a referral team that's in place to serve students and families on a referral basis if they're in need of additional counseling measures beyond what we can provide in the school, and providing warm handoffs and referrals to the appropriate outside agencies to assist those students. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword that they have been so busy because they're dealing with trying to assist students and families that are working through some different issues, but it's a good thing that they are there and meeting. We're currently working with the Dickerson Center joining us at a few pilot schools where they will participate on those school mental wellness teams. We're working with them in terms of their HR capacity, but we look to have a Dickerson Center representative serving on some of these school mental wellness teams in the Pillion, Gilbert, and Red Bank areas. And that is in progress. They're also providing training for our counselors on dealing with high-level trauma. That training actually takes place tomorrow. And again, that just speaks to the progress that this district's made in terms of these outside agency partnerships. And you'll see with Care Solace, that has been a great resource for our parents. They are not an agency themselves, but an agency finder, and they've been able to work with 81 of our families already this first quarter. And I will also point out lastly that, our employee assistance program, of course, which is communicated at the beginning of the year and when folks are onboarded, HR is currently hosting Ask HR sessions at each of the sites and revisiting that so staff members are aware of resources that they have that are available to them and their family members as a part of being an employee in Lexington One. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say, and I know Ms. Gaskins would echo this as well, that, and additionally in terms of, focusing on mental health issues, a big charge that Dr. Postlewaite has given us and we see in place at each site is our staff being intentional about, making our schools and making our classrooms a place where students want to be and having something at school that they can connect with and be excited about. And that's one of the best resources we can provide to any and all of our students.
Thank you very much. We'll move on now to priority 4, attacking staffing shortages.
Okay, well, I ran out of time in every session where we did this, so I'm going to work real hard to keep it short. But I think one thing I really want to name to the board is the level of collaboration that you will see in this goal among different divisions. We have worked hand in hand with everyone at this table here to really make sure we are all involved in attacking that staffing shortage. We did have our first our recruitment fair for our support staff. We had 25 new applicants from that. We're planning that in the spring and accepting some feedback on how we can make that even better. We are diving right into our support staff professional learning sessions. That was the pilot program for those support staff, some who are already in the supervisory roles, some who are aspiring to be in those roles. We are getting ready to actually hold our second session tomorrow, and I think those have been very well received, and people are asking for more and more professional growth, which is amazing and wonderful. We've partnered with Instruction to begin the stay interview process. Really great feedback from that, especially with our teacher group. Our teacher group even said, how can we do more than just year 3 teachers? How can we dig into other groups of people? So we're thinking about how we can grow that. And of course, the pipeline work is one thing that we are thrilled with. You will continue to see that. We had, dreamy, starry eyes about how fast we could make that happen. And we're working really hard to make that happen, but it's a little bit slower progress than we would like. But just excited about the work and the collaboration that's happening to try to make sure we have the best people in place for our students.
Thank you. The next priority was around, I better back up a minute. I think, Mr. Cooper, did you want to say a word about the transportation piece of
Yes,
the
ma'am.
HR? Thanks.
Absolutely. I will say with this, even though our strategies are marked complete, they are most certainly ongoing. Obviously, the bus driver shortage is a real issue, and Lexington One's not exempt from that, just like any districts around us. But that transportation department staff has been working incredibly hard in terms of recruiting and bringing new drivers on board. I would like to just share our work is far from over. But in late August, we were down 32 regular route drivers. We're down 22 regular route drivers now. So by no means are we out of the woods. By no means is our work complete. But that group has done a tremendous job bringing folks on board, getting them trained, getting them in the seat, and again, also focused on trying to make coming to work in Lexington One a place where you can be excited and where you enjoy being. So work's far from over, but we're proud of the progress that we've made.
Thank you. Priority 5 is about communication, and we want to take a special moment to thank Megan Moore, who is a mother with 4 children under the age of 5. And she has managed to fill in brilliantly during this time that we've been without a chief communications officer. So we want to just pause for a second and thank Megan. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Postlewaite. 2 of the big tasks for Priority 5 was providing the community with opportunities to learn more about our Board of Trustees candidates and, of course, the Chief Communications Officer transition. As you can see, most of those deliverables have been completed except for 2, which will be completed soon. Of course, we're still in that transition for Chief Communications Officer. That transition will be completed at the end of November when Libby Roof joins our team. We're very excited about that. Also, a little bit of a typo, the Lakeside Middle dedication was planned for last Thursday, and we had every intention of completing it except for Tropical Storm Nicole. So that has been postponed. We're working with the school to set that date, but that has not been set yet.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
then our last priority is about using, being good fiscal stewards, using resources wisely. We'll hear from Mr. Warren on facilities, Dr. Rivers on technology, and Mrs. Miller with the financial aspect of the 45-day deliverables. Mr. Warren?
As part of this priority, obviously, as we continue to work through inflation, labor shortages, we feel that everywhere, construction as well as at the grocery store, working to develop a path forward for successful completion of our 2018 building program. For the first 45 days, a goal that we had was to secure a guaranteed maximum price for the addition at Forts Pond Elementary School. That has been accomplished. Work has started there at Forts Pond within the project budget, and I look forward to providing an executive summary update on that later this evening.
Okay, on to the next task that we have here is to really upgrade the technology we use in our classroom, our devices that our students have. If you recall, in 2018, the bulk of our mobile computing devices were purchased for all of our students to sustain one-to-one. And so now that we fast forward to 2022 and 2023, those devices are out of date, out of warranty. And so we're looking at a mass refresh of devices for our students so that we can have the best impact on teaching and learning. And so as you can see on the sheet here, we've kind of completed everything in the first 45 days. The real priority was to really survey our staff and students to get a feel of how they're using technology in the classrooms right now. Is it meeting their needs? What device is best for their students? So we did collect that feedback, and that feedback is going to go towards a working group. That working group has been assembled to evaluate the feedback and then to make a determination on what device is best for the classroom. And so that'll be the next phase of that work that's involved. We're also doing a technology audit, going into our school buildings, looking in the classrooms, see how technology is being used to make sure that things are equal across all schools. And so we're collecting information to be shared with a working group, and the working group will use that in their recommendations on what tools are needed for instruction. We're also going to look at a mass inventory. We have a dashboard in place now that tracks our devices. We want to make sure that we have an accurate account of all devices, the year and age when those were purchased. Typically, most devices last about 4 years. And so since that bond referendum, we've been recycling devices. And so if you have a child in the system, most likely they're getting a hand-me-down. And after a while, a hand-me-down wears out. And so we're going to hopefully move away from that in the next refresh, that when a device is issued, it'll last 3 or 4 years, and it's basically sold at the end of that cycle instead of being passed on to other students. So hopefully we can move away from that and have a sustainable plan. And so that last deliverable is developing a timeline so that we can see how that works in our system. And so typically iPads last about 3 or 4 years. The MacBooks that we have last about 4 years, Chromebooks 4 years, and we'll land on a device that will be sustainable in our system for our students to use and make those recommendations, and also look at the fiscal impact on what it will cost us in years to come to sustain that. And so that's kind of where we are now.
All right, good evening. And to wrap things up, we'll talk about the financial side a little bit. We are continuing to review the projection of enrollment and staffing needs for fiscal year 23-24. We have a template currently set up for a 10-year projection that we're working on, and we'll continue to develop that. And then reviewing our ESSER budget and positions and trying to determine what funding we will need to continue those services. And we have had several team meetings. It is noted that there's about $3.2 million of expenditures for positions alone and $3.8 million for annual expenditures. Again, both of those are annual expenditures. So we're looking at about $7 million of ESSER funding that will be going away, and we need to find another revenue stream or determine what programs are being effective and maybe reallocate some funding to cover those.
Thank you. That completes our review of the 45-day report. I certainly appreciate the board's patience with us. Do you have any questions about the 45-day report before we go on to the next slide?
The ESSER cliff is when? It's June of '24?
It is actually September 30th of 2024. So there's one grant, ESSER 2 will be expiring September 30th, 23, and then the final grant will be September 30th, 24. So fiscal year 25, we will no longer have those funds.
So next year's budget cycle, it'll be there, but the year
That's correct.
following it evaporates, okay.
Yes, sir.
So very quickly, we want to talk about the buckets for strategic planning priorities. I have a different slide on my, and I'll just mention very quickly, and it may be that, here we go, the next slide. The buckets for strategic planning priorities are, there are the 6 that you have now. The 3 highlighted are the priorities that we set with principals back in July. Under number 2, you see in red font analysis of what works among the various programs we have in our schools would be part of analyzing how to get accelerated student achievement. We have a lot going on. We need to figure out what is producing the greatest gains for our students and supporting their learning most effectively. As Mrs. Miller mentioned, the federal funding that was released during COVID is expiring, and the district put a lot of recurring expenditures in the ESSER funds. So one of the things we need to do is to get really lean on the number of programs we're running, but to make sure the programs that we are using are the best. Then we didn't have anything in our last strategic plan about our longer-term financial and facilities needs, so that definitely needs to be part of the plan moving forward. And we have begun to schedule what we're calling listening sessions in each attendance area. You might call them town halls, but we're thinking of something a little more focused and productive, so that we take some of these topics and other topics that parents may want to dig into and get their feedback about the facets of the school district they believe need to be considered as we move forward with a strategic plan for the next 5 years. So those listening sessions will hopefully start before winter break and will be scheduled in various communities around the district. So we'll, of course, want board members to participate if you're available, but the superintendent and several SLT members will be attending. The last thing I'll talk about in detail is the new board member orientation. On December 6th, we'll have our first workshop. An attorney will conduct an hour's worth of advice. Andrea White has agreed to do that, and then we will likely try to tack a fairly quick workshop on the tail end of that. There are a couple of information items we'd like to share with the board, so you'll have time to consider them before the December meeting. Step 2, or the second workshop, would be board leaders presenting to the new board. That date needs to be determined, and the board as a whole needs to decide what that would look like. And then as a third phase, the senior leadership team would share what our annual work calendar looks like. From that, we would develop an annual calendar for the board, so the board can anticipate the cadence of work we'll be undertaking month by month, and the date for that is also to be determined.
And this is the picture that we were not actually all together. Those are individual pictures that were digitally combined. So I laugh every time I see that because
it turned out beautifully.
It did. It's pretty amazing. Don't believe pictures you see.
So our final slide is the one that you've seen over and over about disciplined people with disciplined thought, taking disciplined action, so that we have relentless intentionality about focusing on teaching and supporting teaching and learning. I wanted to say just a couple of things. I want to clarify something so that there isn't a misunderstanding leading this meeting. There was a conversation earlier about a preschool center, and there weren't enough funds in the budget to actually build or construct or renovate a preschool center. So I want to be really clear about that. The funds were for demolition, but there was over $1 million at least. That's part of the reconciliation that Mrs. Miller is working on now. But That was to demolish the two-story part of the building. We're getting clarity on that, but there weren't enough funds to actually create a center. What Chief Keel and the legislative delegation has pledged to help us with is making sure that we have adequate funding to relocate portables or create other classroom space so that we have the capacity to start preschool next year in the Gilbert area. And we know we have capacity inside the school. We may need to do a renovation of a classroom or two to provide preschool at Pelion. So we want to accelerate the actual offering of the services to children to start that next August. And that's what Chief Keel had pledged to help us, and the legislative delegation had pledged to help us with, is initiating more quickly that preschool programming. It's not to build an entire preschool center. And I think not knowing each other's fields, we may have been talking past each other. So I just want to clarify that. And then finally, quoting country music singer John Party, I just want to say I am thankful to be surrounded by such successful people. And I really appreciate the capability of the staff, their dedication to this district, their willingness to come out to event after event. I want to recognize Tracy and Karen, all the advance work they do to set up the meetings. Holly as well, they take such good care of us. Kimberly Freeman is here tonight. Josh is here, as always, running the AV for us. So I just want to take this opportunity in this season of pausing to consider our blessings, to talk about how grateful I am to teachers for what they do every single day, for the support staff who work with them, the administrative team who support them, all of the operational divisions that make it possible to roll the buses and feed the kids and keep the buildings safe. And to those of you who have given of your lives the last 4 years to serve this district. It is a difficult time to be an elected official. It takes a lot of courage, and it certainly is contentious because most of our families can't even agree on some of the topics with which we've had to deal. So thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you and for you. Thank you. Next on our agenda, under Superintendent's update, you'll hear, as Mr. Warren mentioned, very briefly from him, and then from Mrs. Miller on what we're going to do moving forward on capital projects and the procurement update. Mr. Warren?
Thank you. Happy to be here tonight to provide another operations update from November. Work continues on our 2018 building program. I look forward to providing some of those updates for you here. Starting with Gilbert High School, thrilled to report we have received occupancy for the weight room and wrestling room addition at Gilbert High School. You see on the left, Coach Hudson's already at work getting the mats installed, and he's already had a few practices there. Mat color looks great with the scheme and the wall padding. It just really stands out, and thrilled with how that turned out. The right, you see the new weight room that is receiving final touches as far as weight equipment assembly and things, but they are free to get in there and work out, the students and athletes there at Gilbert High School. So thrilled for that. Speaking of Coach Hudson, I was thrilled to receive this photo from him yesterday, his 2022-23 wrestling team. This is why we do what we do, and just want to thank you, Board, for your support of our students and staff and making these first-class facilities a reality. So they are thrilled in Gilbert, America for wrestling season this year. Moving to our transportation facility, you see substantial progress at the site here. The bus garage is being closed in on the left. This garage will house 2 buses for repairs and service. 2 more buses can occupy the wash bay right to the left of that photo. You see on the right, very excited to see some asphalt going down in the main bus parking area. Site work continuing there as weather allows, but that asphalt will soon be completed for the on-site portion. This photo shows the outside of the garage and the wash bays. See the concrete is installed and complete in this area as well as the vapor barrier. On the right, wanted you to see a corridor where drywall is nearing completion. Ceiling installed, doors, windows, hardware will soon be occurring there. as well as carpet. Moving to Forts Pond Elementary, this is what I mentioned earlier. We, as stated, I believe last month, that moving forward, we'll provide these executive summary reports for new projects. This is provided by Pinnacle Architecture, the design firm for the 4-classroom addition at Forts Pond Elementary. Recently broke ground there, constructing, like I said, 4 additional classroom spaces. You see the GMP sum, project sum for, oh, hit the wrong button. Whoops. There it comes. Is $1,816,000, and I'm sorry, $222. To this point, we have not had any change orders to the work, and you see that we have been billed so far for $70,464 worth of work and stored materials. The key plan you see on the bottom right of this slide shows where the classroom additions are going at the end of the 200 and 300 hallways. Moving to the second page of the summary, more photos documenting the progress so far at Forts Pond. Provide some clarity on this project. Anytime you add on to the end of a wing at a school, you lose egress. You lose the ability for students and staff to leave out the exit doors. So what we have to do there is create an egress in a classroom. So we have done that here. This is very similar to what we just did at Carolina Springs Middle School with their 6 classroom additions. So we're very familiar with how this needs to go and what needs to happen here. So you see that to meet these fire code requirements, we turn 1 classroom at the end of each hallway into an exit and install temporary egress doors for the students and staff to use in case of any kind of an emergency where they would need to evacuate. And then once the project is complete, brick will go in, the sidewalks will come up, and you'll never know it was there. But that is something we work with OSF and our design professionals to make sure we're meeting all code requirements through this project. And we can continue to follow our plan on the building plan website for updated photos for this work, including these and more.
Are there any questions for Mr. Warren before we move on to Mrs. Miller? Thank you. Mrs. Miller?
All right, good evening, Chairwoman Green, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Postlewaite. We have 2 main areas that we are going to focus on this evening, and these relate to section 9.3 and 9.4. First, the capital projects update, followed by the procurement update. Each month, the board has been presented with a capital project report. We have been working in conjunction with the operations division to modify the report to include additional information for the board. As stated at the bottom of the capital project reports, over the past several months, we are providing an update this evening to the board. The first thing you're going to notice on next month's report is the format change to the report. We will begin showing 2 new columns. You see there in the red boxes, we have a transfer column followed by an encumbrance column. The reason these columns were not reported originally was simply for the fact that these amounts will be estimates and they will fluctuate each month. So it's very critical that the board understands that these are estimates and they will be fluctuating each month. Let's go into a little detail first about what transfers are. It's absolutely normal for projects to come in over budget or under budget, especially when you have a long-term project such as the one we have with the bond referendum. These estimates were originally projections from a facility study that is over 5 years old. And we certainly understand what's happened at the grocery store with the price of milk. It's the same thing with our construction projects. So what we thought the project would cost originally is certainly not what we're going to end up paying for some of these projects that are at the end of the period. The encumbrance column is simply expenditures that we've committed to with a purchase order. That means we've already generated the purchase order and we're obligated to pay those. This does not include all the expenditures to complete those projects, but it is what we have committed to already. So again, you'll start seeing those on the reports that will be presented starting in December. You will get the November, or the October and the November reports in December. Next, we're going to switch over to the procurement update. We have two areas I want to talk about tonight. The first one is our purchase cards, and the other one is the unauthorized procurements. So starting on the left here with the purchase cards, we have been taking a look at this. As I mentioned last month, I've been reviewing current procedures that we have in place and looking at our current internal controls. I have not found anything that is fraudulent or anything that is material to the financial statements as a whole. But as any procedure, you can always enhance things, and so that's what we're doing. We're just enhancing internal controls that we already have in place. And just to give you an idea of what some of those enhancements are, it really relates to documentation. Being a prior auditor, I'm big on documentation. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. So I'm really encouraging the schools and departments to increase the documentation. Part of that is streamlining the documentation so it's consistent between schools and departments. So we have 3 new forms that we're going to be rolling out December 1st. These will be effective. I'm actually going out personally, meeting with every principal at every school, and I'm also meeting with every department head. They're signing new agreements for the purchase card so that everybody is clear on what the expectations are and what the guidelines are. And we will make these guidelines effective December 1st. I'm about halfway through with my school visits, so we're almost there. We've got a couple more days scheduled. We'll be out at the schools. So the first form that is going to be rolled out, we are calling this an assistant acknowledgement form. As I mentioned last month, we receive funds that are donated. So these are donated from various churches, and we had documentation of what those expenditures were used for. We're just enhancing that documentation. I added another form that will just add more detail to that. So again, we had the proper document supporting those expenditures. We're just enhancing the documentation. The next item is the purchase of gift cards. We've noticed that schools will often have gift cards that they may give out as incentive to students, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, just enhancing the documentation. We have the receipt for those purchases, but we're just going to add a form to that documenting which children would receive those and just making sure that we're following the trail of where those items are going. And then the last form is called a contract comparison form. One of our guidelines right now is saying that we must buy items on state contracts. As a school district, we have the benefit to buy on state contract, but we are not legally required to buy on state contract because we are not a true state agency. So while it's a convenience, if it is on state contract, you don't have to go through procurement. You can just buy it on the contract. We don't have to do that. So what we have noticed is we're buying a lot of things on state contract. We may be paying more for something or not getting something that we need timely. So we are actually creating a form that will show the comparison of what the cost would be between the two vendors, the one on state contract and the one not on contract, and then also if there's a supply chain issue and you need to actually receive it faster, and that's why you're purchasing from another vendor. But prior to that form even being completed, they will get written approval from the procurement director just to make sure we're covering all the contracts and that we're not overlooking something. So again, this was just, it wasn't required per law, but our own guideline had that, so effective December 1st, we're modifying that guideline. I know that was a lot. Switching gears over to the second side here, are unauthorized procurements. The board has a report this evening. I believe there's 25 total on there. I just wanted to explain what those unauthorized procurements are. That doesn't mean we have unauthorized expenditures. So here's the breakout of what those 25 are. The first, there are 5 invoices that were received prior to receiving approval. That doesn't mean those were not allowable expenditures. It just means we got the approval after the fact. Then on to the next item, there were purchases where you're not using a discount card. We have a district contract that we have to have a discount card with, and it has to be scanned. Well, 3 purchases this past month, someone didn't use that discount card, so that's what that unauthorized amount was. 12 purchases made from vendors not on state contract. We just talked about that. That's not a law. We have to do that. So of the 25, 12 of those technically will not be unauthorized starting December 1st based on that change. We have 1 item of a purchase of software on the purchase card. Again, it's not that the software isn't allowed. It's just our procedure says you should go through the purchase order process, not buy that on a P card. The next one there is buying from a vendor, one purchase was made from a vendor that was not on the proper district contract, used the wrong vendor. And then lastly, there were 3 purchases from state contracts on the P card. Again, allowable expenditures from an allowable contract. It's just you're supposed to buy that through the procurement process, doing a purchase order, not charging it on the P card. Again, not that it's a bad expenditure, just the process you did to do that. So just wanted to make sure the board was clear on that. Again, referring back to the enhancements, 12 of these would not even be in existence next month, so we should see a decrease in our unauthorized. And then I just want to thank the finance team members. There has been so much hard work in the rollout of these new enhancements and other divisions as well. Everybody's working together, and I really appreciate the efforts in streamlining the processes across the schools and the district.
And that concludes the unusually lengthy superintendent's report for tonight. We allocated 30 minutes to Chief Keel, and then we also had the 45-day report. So we promise this will not happen often. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and it was all worth the time. Thank you very much. And Ms. Miller, thank you so much for the explanation on the those things. It really was extremely helpful and informative. Thank you. All right, we are now moving on to citizens' participation. Lexington County School District One's Board of Trustees solicits the advice and counsel of its citizens. To encourage this participation, the board provides a citizens' participation period during board meetings. In order to speak, you must be the parent or legal guardian of a student currently attending a Lexington District 1 school, a taxpayer residing in the Lexington District 1 attendance area, an employee of the district, or a student currently attending a Lexington District 1 school. You may comment on agenda items, school operations, policies, or programs. You may not speak about or name specific individuals, whether students or school or district staff. Failure to follow this rule will result in immediate loss of the opportunity to speak. We want to remind you that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording of this meeting will be part of the public record in perpetuity. We want to give everyone who came tonight an opportunity to speak. In order to do that, I will call on you by name and ask you to approach the lectern at the back of the room. The board will not reply to your remarks nor take any action during the board meeting in response to your comments or questions. You may address the board for up to 3 minutes. If you have any handouts, please hand those to Ms. Halliday in the back of the room and she'll distribute them. And please do not clap or make any comments either while an individual speaks or after he or she finishes. As you came in tonight, you received a card to fill out if you wanted to speak. That card asks for your name, address, and other information. However, I will only read out your name and the town that you reside in. If you're unable to attend this evening or uncomfortable addressing the board in person, you may reach out to the board by email, telephone, or mail, and our contact information is available on the Lexington District 1 website. We welcome all messages. The first speaker tonight is Marielle Taylor, and Marielle lives in Lexington and would like to speak about literacy.
Do I need to start over? Good, okay. So for the past 10 years, I've been a teacher in 2 South Carolina public schools, all of which were in 1st and 2nd grades. For 6 of those years, I was lucky enough to be a part of the staff at Lexington Elementary School, and on August 24th, 2022, I resigned. There were many reasons that led to me making this very difficult decision, and I'm here today to talk to you about one of those reasons. Teaching children to read is one of the most vital and fundamental skills teachers bestow upon a child. Our brains are not wired to learn how to read as they are to speak. Reading, therefore, must be explicitly taught in a sequential way if the goal is to have students reading proficiently by the end of 2nd grade. If it's not taught that way, gaps and deficiencies in student knowledge grow, and with it, the likelihood students will be over-identified for special education. In our district, students are taught literacy using a balanced literacy approach with a curriculum called Lucy Calkins' Unit of Study, which has fabricated an illusion of giving every child what they need through student-driven inquiry and self-driven determination to practice various strategies a teacher has modeled using during a short 10-minute lesson. It's within this illusion of best practice that independent reading is prioritized over explicit instruction and application of phonics skills necessary for reading acquisition. Students are becoming practitioners in mimicking reading behaviors without actually becoming fluent readers. This curriculum's approach to teaching our young readers is rooted in guessing words based on pictures, what the word's first letter is, and what makes sense within the context of a story. Unit of Study is not research-backed and currently provides hardly any instruction that thoroughly teaches children how to connect sounds to letters. This is problematic for all students learning how to read. Fortunately, there's a whole division of science dedicated to how a person's brain learns to read called the science of reading. It's over 75 years of evidence-based research backed by MRI scans of brains that prove how a child's brain actually learns to read. Unfortunately, this research has not been accessible to teachers until the past 3 years. Last year, I learned that quality literacy instruction does not take a curriculum, especially when those cost our district a lot of money. It takes highly qualified teachers who prioritize science of reading strategies in their literacy instruction. I think we can all agree about the learning gaps made worse by COVID. It's time for our district to stop relying on balanced literacy in the units of study and start using peer-reviewed research to help us make decisions for our students. Fortunately, there was some movement towards a more structured instruction or phonemic awareness instruction last year, but with all the evidence and research we have on brain science and how the brain learns to read, which I know the literacy department here is very much aware of, Lexington One is not moving fast enough to right the wrongs in literacy instruction. If we are truly interested in being the best district in this state, we're going to have to take a hard look at what is being currently done within our early childhood literacy instruction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Emily Copney, and she lives in Lexington and wants to talk about EL education.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Copney, and I am a senior at River Bluff High School. Today, I'm here to speak about EL education. I attended Pleasant Hill Elementary and Middle School, and while I did enjoy every moment of it, since moving to River Bluff, I have achieved many things, such as joining Beta Club, National Honor Society, playing varsity sports, and recently getting into colleges and their honors colleges. All of which I do not believe would have happened without the education I have received at River Bluff. I was a new student my freshman year and had a hard time making friends. With EL having such a strict emphasis on collaboration and relationships through things like circle ups, debriefs, and crew, it has allowed me to become very comfortable with those around me. We laugh every day in my crew class, and I've heard so many stories and been able to be there for one another. Aside from collaboration and relationships, another EL approach is linking real-world issues to the classroom, which I think has been extremely beneficial to me. I am a student in the Lexington One Center for Low and Global Policy Development, and I'm currently doing an internship with the Lexington County Public Defender. We also hosted a congressional debate and a school board forum. Might I add the center is not part of the EL curriculum, but has many practices that do follow EL, such as participating in civil discourse led by students. Part of what the center has shown me what I want to do in the future and showed me the changes I'd like to make to the world. Removing exponential learning from the River Bluff isn't just about removing a title, but taking away the aspects of high achievement through active learning, character growth, and teamwork. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And next we have Ms. Debbie Heim, and she lives in Lexington.
Thanks to Emily for coming and speaking. It's always tough to come after a student because that's what we're all here for. I want to give a shout out to all those teachers for all their recognition tonight, especially Ms. Small. She has been a student to my kids for lots of years, all of their years there. One thing I want to point out with the SLED discussion tonight is that we're about to have this board shift to different board members, none of whom will be living in the Gilbert area. And we just heard the top SLED guy tell us he wants to bring growth there. I would be very careful about that. Obviously, we all want student safety. I have kids myself, okay? We want our staff safe, we want our kids safe, every one of them. That's a whole different discussion. Everybody's for those kinds of training facilities. I would just be careful about how that's done, especially if voters voted for one thing and board member trustees lock up something else with that, because what I heard tonight was a lot of uncertainty about the finances of that. And if we go back to last summer on our bond referendum project, I sat in this room and I heard our board members be told that it was emergency, that they needed to approve an additional $5 million in funding pronto, right away, for road work for the new middle school that y'all were just talking about having the opening ceremony for, which is beautiful. I've been inside it. We produce beautiful buildings in the school district. But my concern is about how did we not know that road work was going to have to come? Is that an oops? Somebody made an oops somewhere? Or what? Especially if there's emails that exist that prove the district knew about it way before they told the board. Our board was told an inconsistent statement from the staff, and they approved that cost $5 million. Either a few weeks just before or just after that, they approved an additional $6.5 million from the same bond referendum to increase the scope of the transportation facility. Looks great. Mr. Warren, those pictures look great. But they bid out a project that was much smaller than they needed. And again, they came to the board in an emergency that this needed to be approved right away so we could get those buses off that lot, which sat there for many months. So I just want to point out to the current board and to the incoming board, if they're watching this, because none of them are sitting here in this room right now. Oh, Mr. Rice, I didn't see you come in. I had moved up after they all came, so thank you. And I know Katie McCown was here earlier and left. I just want it clear that the voters who are the stakeholders here, okay, all of them, that their wishes are honored. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to new business, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kyle Guyton.
So, Madam Chair, board members, tonight we will not be presenting, obviously, any new policy for consideration. We will only address these in the action items. So, I would respectfully request that we hold any discussion regarding the specific policies until which time we have a motion on the table. Regarding the ad hoc committee itself, our goal has always been quality, not quantity, and so as such, I will leave you tonight as the chairperson of that committee with an incomplete job. As we discussed from the start, that we knew this could be a potential, and so I would urge the new board to consider moving forward with the B policy revisions. I have spoken with Ms. Henson regarding her potential to continue on that committee and possibly serve as in a chair capacity. She has graciously agreed, and I think Mr. Oswald would join me in saying that she would be an excellent choice for that committee. So again, I would urge the new board to consider her as a chairperson for that committee moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Guyton, for chairing that committee. And I know you kept using we and we and we, so I'm looking forward to your participation as a citizen on the ad hoc policy committee. You have done an excellent job keeping that slow-moving train moving, so thank you very much for that work. One more item under new business is just an explanation of the certification of new board members, and I thank you, Chris Rice, for being here, and I know Ms. McCown was here earlier as well. As it stands this afternoon, the election has not been certified yet. Based on an article in the Post and Courier today, and they talked to the Lexington County Election Commission, they expect to have the hand recount completed by Friday, by the 18th. And so until that time, we can't do anything officially until those results are certified. So just stay tuned on that. All right, moving on to action items. Do I hear a motion that the board approve the recommendation of 6 student travel requests?
6 or 9? I've got 9.
Is it 9, Ms.
Yes, it's
Halliday?
9.
It's 9.
No.
9, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I move the board approve the recommendation of 9 student travel requests. The travel requests were reviewed by administration and are in compliance with board policy.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Is there any discussion? All right, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the second reading of policy BD and BDR, organization of the board?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the second reading of policy BD and BDR, organization of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. All right, is there any discussion? Dr. Guyton, would you like to lead that?
Yes, let me get my, my notes here. Madam Chair, at this time, I would make a motion to amend and adopt optional language for policy BD. I bring this to you as board member Kyle Guyton, not as chairperson Kyle Guyton, as this is out of my creation, not out of the ad hoc committee. As you see in policy BD, in your draft 21, the ad hoc committee did include disciplinary action of board members as optional language. After hearing discussion of this at the last board meeting, I have since drafted an amendment and potential adoption to read removal of board officers as the heading. As board officers are duly elected by a majority vote of the board may act to remove a board officer in the event of an officer's willful and/or continuing violation of policy by a supermajority, 75% vote of the board.
Thank you. We have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Garris.
I will pass down the amendment for
Oh, thank you.
review of the language. Just take one pass.
Is this going to supplant the red language?
This would supplant disciplinary action of board members, the
All right.
optional language.
So the motion is to remove what's there and place this in its place?
Correct. And again, this comes out of discussion from our last meeting in which we discussed this. There seemed to be sort of, at least in my opinion, sort of clear agreement that since the board instills its officers, therefore there should be a mechanism by which if someone appears to have willful or neglect of the office, that there needs to be a mechanism to remove such officer, and this just allows the board to do such.
Thank you, and I appreciate you taking the conversation that took place last month and creating this amendment. I'm in much stronger support of this amendment than the previous language. As we discussed last month, there's really not a mechanism for board members to police or discipline each other, but I think that this is an appropriate language that the board can remove an officer for misconduct or violation of policy. So I think that is a nice change, so thank you for proposing that. Is there any other discussion or questions for Dr. Guyton on the amendment?
So this is the first time I'm seeing it. Did the mechanics of 75%, how many board members would have to be that supermajority out of a 7-member board?
So that would be five out of 7, so 7, am I correct on that?
It's 5.25.
5.25.
So that means
6 out of 7.
so 6 out of 7, okay.
6 out of 7.
And then I do know generally before the board considers policies, we run it by SCSBA and legal counsel or, other feedback. Have we gotten feedback on this amendment?
I did not solicit any feedback from them, no.
Okay. I just wonder, best practice with other districts across the state.
I think we have seen, obviously, throughout our research as the ad hoc committee, we did see a wide variety of language across districts that some have, to what Ms. Green alluded to, some have mechanisms by which any board member can be disciplined. I share Ms. Green's concern that I think that's held to the electorate. But I do think anytime the board has a mechanism by which they instill a particular board member or set them aside, there needs to be a mechanism by which they can be removed from that position.
All right. Anything else? All right. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'd like some external review, so it's nay for me for now. I'm not opposed to it. I just want to make sure, again, we've got more than 7 of us up here thinking about it. So.
So, 4-2,
I tell you, with this late change, why don't we table this? Let's take it back to the ad hoc committee and take what Kyle has here and go back to square one.
well, but I believe the amendment has passed. We took a vote and it's 4-2.
Okay.
So let's consider the policy as amended now. And so we,
Is there not a way to recall a vote immediately after you take it?
somebody has to ask for that, yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to recall the vote then.
All right,
I'll second that.
all right. Do we have to vote on a recall? Does anybody? Okay, all right, all in favor of recalling the previous vote, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Okay, 5-2. All right. So would you like to make a motion to table it?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So we're going to table the BD and BDR?
Yes.
Is that correct? All right. Any? Dr. Guyton? All right. All in favor of tabling policy BD, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
All right, and the motion carries. I'm so sorry you won't be able to continue working on that for us, Dr. Guyton. All
I will
right.
follow the will of the board. Moving on to, with BDR, there were no additional changes regarding previous language. So that I assume the tabling was of BD, or was it of BD
It was
dash
BD.
R?
It was
Okay,
BD.
so, so therefore, I assume we would split the vote on this, and this would come forth as as presented.
All right, so a motion from the committee?
It was first moved, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a second?
What are we voting on?
BDR.
BDR, there's a motion to approve BDR. Is there a second? No? All right, the motion dies.
Moving on to section BBAA-R. I must at this point apologize that for the draft before you, there was language that was initially presented that in translating to this final draft for second review did not make it. It was presented originally, but this would be requesting legal opinions, additional paragraph. So if you look to page 2 of BBAA-R, under the header requesting legal opinions, there's an additional paragraph that says the board acknowledges the board chair on occasion may need to solicit legal opinion prior to responding to requests in the capacity as the official spokesperson for the board. In such event, the chair will notify the board of this request and any subsequent correspondence with legal counsel. So therefore, I would make a motion to amend Administrative Rule BBAA-R to include this paragraph as just spoken.
Second.
All right, so, this is to insert the amendment.
Correct. It was, again, it was originally provided, however, it did not make it over on second translation.
Okay, all right. Any discussion about the amendment?
I just have a question. So this was in the folder sitting in our desk. This came from you, this
Correct.
amendment? Okay.
Correct. I figured it was best to go ahead and amend it in the final draft version, even though it was previously as part of first reading, but You know, for consistency's sake, amendment was probably warranted.
All right. All right.
And again, I guess did SCSBA or legal counsel or anybody look over this, give us feedback or?
So the original feedback came from South Carolina School Board Association at the, as a part of your draft 21. And so, again, we as a committee did speak, and so there were some adjustments that were made to the language based off of what we felt to be the needs of the district. But other than that, original guidance did come from South Carolina School Board Association.
All right, all in favor of the amendment to BBAR, please say aye.
Madam Chair, due to the fact that this amendment has come at such a late date on a second reading, I would like to make a motion that we table this one as well and return to an ad hoc committee for clarification.
All right, is there, is a motion's been made to table this? Is there a second?
I'm more concerned about the agenda, which isn't this amendment. So the amendment is to the legal opinion, but.
All right, so we'll.
But I would second it based upon the language of the agenda, just because again, I just want to make sure there's some feedback on that process.
So you're seconding the motion for the amendment, all right.
And I'm seconding the motion
To table the
it.
amendment.
Yeah,
All right.
based upon the
All right,
agenda
so
setting language.
So the motion is to table the amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Right? Yes.
Yes, okay.
Aye. Please say aye again. 1, 2. Aye, 3. All opposed to tabling the amendment?
Opposed?
Opposed.
The amendment or the table?
The tabling of the amendment.
Yeah, opposed.
Opposed. And I'm opposed to tabling it. So the motion fails. So we will adopt the amendment. The motion is on the table to adopt the amendment. So all in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, I'm okay with it.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so now we are at BBAR. We have a motion on the table to approve the administrative rule BBAAR. Is there any further discussion?
So my only concern again is, I guess the process is we took the model SCSBA policy, and then that's what's in black, and then the changes in red are what the committee made changes. Is that correct? Is that the process?
So this is actually, this was one of the originals to start the ad hoc committee.
This policy is what started the ad hoc committee on its way.
Okay.
And so this was a language that was originally presented by the board itself for consideration. I would draw your attention to requesting the addition of items to board meeting agendas. Any board member wishing to suggest an agenda item. So again, this was written in the singular. And so I certainly understand the concern that 7 members times 20 agenda items, that would be 140 items for consideration. However, this was written in the singular and essentially allows an avenue for which a board member can request for an item to be considered to be added to the agenda at a later date. Again, the process would ensue that Dr. Postawade and her team would assemble a time consideration for that and the resources that were required to report on such an agenda item, and then that would come before the board as a vote.
And I guess my concern is, we're asking our central services, our school level leadership, and our teachers to be laser focused about closing instructional gaps and executing against our strategic plan. So I would suggest the agenda should mirror our strategic plan, and we should execute against that. So again, I don't know the rationale of spending board time to consider an agenda item that's not aligned with our strategic plan.
I guess the consideration for that would be that all requests would be unaligned with the strategic plan. And I would say that at least my hope would be that when future board member would bring a request before the board, that it would align to the strategic plans and the purview of the board.
And I think our board chair over the years has done a wonderful job partnering with our superintendent and setting the agenda. So, but I guess the changes that are being suggested, is that a concern of that?
Does it, say that again, I'm sorry?
I guess the process to date of how the agenda's been set, there's concern with it?
Yes, it is. And during the first, when Kathy came on the board, we had an attorney that came in and gave board training, and she said 2 years ago, there needs to be a way for board members to get an item on the agenda. I know you're interested in having the agenda align with the strategic plan, but the agenda hasn't aligned with the strategic plan for years now, and I've had that concern. So I'm just curious, what makes you concerned about that now?
No, I'm saying it should.
Yeah, I know it should. It should have for the past few years, but it hasn't. And I've brought that to your attention. So I'm just curious now, what is the concern? Because now it's actually aligning with the strategic plan.
Well, and I think we're getting in the weeds. What this does is it initiates a process for a board member to bring an item to the board, and then the board decides, yes, we need to spend time on an agenda to talk about it. And I mean, I think we should be concerned that there are guardrails that you don't fully debate a topic in deciding whether to put it on the agenda for future debate. And I don't see any those guardrails here, because then you'll end up talking about it twice, or pre-talking about it before it's actually on the agenda. But I don't have any concerns with this process. We kind of tried to implement this at one point in time, but it really wasn't within our policy. And so I like having it outlined that there is a way to initiate that process so that the board owns that decision as to whether to place it on the agenda or not.
All right, so just for clarification, let's walk through this. How would one, let's say, Jada, let's say you want something on the agenda, you bring it to who?
In the past, I have brought it to the board chair and the superintendent, and neither would put it on the agenda. So this way, it would come to the board as a whole, and then the board would say, yes, we want this on the agenda, or no, we don't, after the superintendent has had a chance to say, okay, it's going to take, my team this amount of time to put it together and this amount of time to present it to the board. Is this something the board is interested in us investing our time in?
I've got no problem with that part, but I'm trying to figure out, at what point does the board decide that the suggestion for this agenda item will be put on the agenda? Where does the board?
So I want something on the agenda. I would notify Anne Marie or Dr. Postlethwaite, and they would put that item on the agenda immediately, like go on the next meeting, and it would say, Jada wants an item about school transportation on the agenda. So, it'd be more detailed, of course. So then Dr. Postlethwaite would be ready for that meeting, and she'd say, okay, it's going to take my staff 13 hours to put this together. Is this something the board wants their time invested in? And then you would vote yes or no, and then it would show up on the following agenda.
So it would actually show up twice?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion or questions about this? All right. So we have a motion on the table to approve BBAAR with the amendment. Dr. Guyton made the motion because we've already amended it. And so we're back to the original motion that Dr. Guyton made, recommending the adoption of BBAAR. We did. Okay, so we have the amendment was approved. We have the BBAAR that is now amended, and that is what we are getting ready to vote on. Is everybody clear on what you're about to vote on? Everybody good? All right. All in favor of adopting BBAAR as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
All right. And the motion carries. All right. Board, you have received the following reports: the monthly general fund financial report, the monthly general fund budget transfers report, and the monthly unauthorized procurements report. Wait, oh.
You skipped 12.3.
I did skip something. I'm so sorry.
Can I just have a point of privilege real quick?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank Kyle, Kathy's not here, and Tim for their work on this committee. And the reason I did not, I voted to table this other policy, Kyle, was because I didn't want it to die forever. So not that I was not in agreement with the policy, because I appreciate all the work y'all have done. I just didn't want to vote it down and then it just disappears forever. I want it to be tabled and someone else to pick up that work. And as far as the BDR, I just wanted a sentence in there about, in the absence of the secretary, the board will elect a temporary secretary. So I just wanted Kyle to know he had my full support, and I appreciate the work that that committee has done, and that was my reasons for those votes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Garris. All right, I apologize for skipping 12.3. I have a lot of papers up here right now. All right, board members, you have received the Delegate Assembly Handbook containing the recommendations from the South Carolina School Board Association committees on 2023 officers and directors, 2023 legislative resolutions and constitution and bylaws changes. The Delegate Assembly will take place on December 3rd. Ms. Henson and I will serve as Lexington One's delegates. We voted on that in October. The Lexington One, because of our student population, we have 9 votes at the Delegate Assembly. But the way it works is the board votes to accept these recommendations, and then our delegates vote all the same, because it's for our board, it's an up or down, and then the 9 delegates vote. It's all 9 one way or the other. And so do I hear a motion for the board to approve the South Carolina School Board Association's recommendations?
Madam Chair, I move the board authorize its delegates to vote in favor of the SCSBA's nominating committee recommendations for SCSBA's 2023 officers and directors, the SCSBA's legislative committee's recommendations for SCSBA's 2023 legislative resolutions, and SCSBA's Policy and Constitution Committee recommendations for constitution and bylaw changes.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Is there any questions? And just for point of information, the legislative resolutions that the Delegate Assembly approves, that is just a guidebook for the association to guide their advocacy efforts at the legislature for the General Assembly. And so it just sets the priority for the on behalf of the member districts on how they want the School Board Association to engage with the General Assembly on education matters. So that's what that is. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. All right. I've already gone through the items that in your packet for board information. All right. Don't forget, tomorrow is Collaborative Planning Day. I realized that yesterday, so yay. As we are approaching the Thanksgiving break, on behalf of the board, I want to say how thankful we are for everyone in Lexington One, all of our employees, our administrators, the teachers, the bus drivers, the food service folks, the housekeepers. I mean, it is a very complex and very busy organization, and I'm just extremely thankful for everything that everybody does. And I am very thankful for Tim Oswald, Kyle Guyton, and Jada Garris and the time that they have devoted to Lexington One and our students and staff. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Madam Chair, I'd like to take a point of privilege before we adjourn, and we've seen some changes since I've sat on this board. We will see more in the next week or so, but Kyle, Jada, and Tim, and me and this guy go way back. It's been great working with you. We haven't always agreed on things, but I hope that going forward that you let the Lord guide you and that everything goes your way. Thank you so much. And with that, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. All in favor, please say aye and go home.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.